Hi, welcome to the Market Alert for Wednesday, the 7th of February 2018. So yesterday in the pound, the market attempted to sell off, but found support at the psychological level of 139.50, the blue line, and then came back up to the 140 level before then moving south and then eventually finding support, having moved another 50 points through the 139 level there, and then we had a buy signal just before the end of the session. As the dollar moved lower, the pound came back, but still stuck in this sort of lower highs, sideways range. You've also got the market below the 20 bar average, or just hanging around there. Now let's just zoom into this a bit. So we're through the 139, so let's get rid of that and just clean up the chart. We've got this at 139.15 there, and we're through these the lower 76% as well, so let's just get rid of that as well. And now the market looks like it's showing a bit of support, which you can see there with the volume yesterday, blue test, so a bit of support coming into the market. And again, we'll get rid of these here. And when we look at the longer term, it's just useful to throw these things back in. So we've got this high down to this low, and there we have the fib areas where the market could find some resistance should it move higher off here. That's where it will run into trouble initially. And also the 76% that was left behind here that we just removed is also going to be a resistance area as well, because the market remembers where these areas of resistance and support, of course, were as they move back into these areas. And in the weekly chart, again, we've got, it's very simplistic, but we've got lower highs for the last 2 weeks, so there's some weakness around. And the same in the daily chart there, you've got lower highs this week as people are moving back to the dollar following the stock market's drop on Monday. And speaking of which, yesterday the market recovering. You've got the pre-market session there. You can see the market coming off the lows and then pulling back. Looks around about 50% of the move, perhaps not so much, about 38%, and then just gently moving higher in the main part of the session there. A lot of volume for yesterday as they try to hold this market and bring it back. So sideways to lower on the overnight, and you can see this in the daily, and this is a bit of a concern actually, and there's another reason why it's a concern which I'll come to in just a moment. But the first thing is that the market desperately needs to do this. It's got to take out this high, yesterday's high, and at the moment it's turning south and starting to move lower again. Also, what I've done on the daily chart as well, one thing that's used in the industry is a 200-day moving average, which you'll see there, and the market hasn't come down to this yet, and quite easily could do as well. A lot of buying yesterday, you'll see that there, but is it people that were short that were being squeezed out of the position as the market came back? There's probably a combination of that as well. But there's it still looks fairly weakish at the moment, and today will really tell whether the market's going to trade sideways to lower or not. But certainly it is at the moment, no doubts about that. And in the weekly chart, nothing to report there, or the monthly. So yeah, let's see what it does. News-wise today, what have we got? Not a great deal. Halifax home prices. Dudley speaking at 130. That's before the main market opens, but it's only medium impact. Nobody's interested in what he's got to say. Crude oil figures don't really factor into the market anymore. Don't know why it's a high impact news item. And then Williams is going to speak as well, and no one's going to take any notice of him either. The market isn't really looking or taking any notice of economic news items like it used to do in days gone by. And it's probably because the information available via the internet now is so massive that it doesn't seem to impact on it, or people have just got used to the fact that most of it is complete and utter BS. And that's probably more the case. In the implied volatility, we can see that this shot up yesterday, and this is the second part of the concern that I have. Given that the market found support yesterday on the overnight market and during the session, the implied volatility has gone up, which means that there's a lot of nervousness around with the option sellers. They're not prepared to sell the put options cheap. They want their pound of flesh out of them. Anybody that wants to buy put options now are going to pay for it, because only last week they were priced in 8%, and now it's 20%, a massive increase. They're well over the 100% mark that we've been looking for. But this is also, it has a concern, but also the fact that we've got a doubling of the implied volatility also. I would expect the market to be sideways, is what I would expect over the next few days, to absorb what's actually happened, and we'll take a view, but isn't going to turn around and just shoot back up. There's nothing for it to do that. It's not like the V-shaped corrections that we've had in the past where they were still pumping money into the markets. There's no QE. They're trying to offload the balance sheet, and they're doing it into a market of rising interest rates as well. It doesn't bode well. Plus you've got the 10-year, sort of the end of the 10-year business cycle as well. That doesn't help either. So everything is stacked against it in that sense to move higher. But of course, if the central banks want it higher, they'll do whatever they can to try and pump it higher initially. And in Bitcoin finding support yesterday, because the US government, the CTFC, I said CTA yesterday, which is a commodities trading advisor, of which I was one once. I meant the CTFC. And also the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, seem to have given a bit of a thumbs up to regulation for Bitcoin, and that's why you're seeing all this buying coming into this yesterday, and the market finding support at the moment. And I say at the moment because we could see this level tested over here that we saw in November before we had this massive rally up to 20,000 from 6,000. But the 6,000 level has been tested at during yesterday's trading session, so could do with a bit of consolidation sideways. Thing is, with Bitcoin, it can get into a sideways move for a long time, as you've seen here, just sort of moving up and down in a range, and that's fine if that's what it's got to do. Markets do have to consolidate before they can make another big move. There has to be an accumulation phase after you've had a distribution phase, i.e. buying and then selling. So let's see how that also pans out. But certainly at the moment it's got a bit of support in there, and that's the biggest volume we've seen in this since here. So again, those of you that follow volume like I do, I think it says an awful lot. That to me is the bottom in for the time being. It's a huge amount of volume there. Right, that will do it for this one. Nothing else to really add to it, and if there is, I will let you know. Other than that, as ever, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.